All right, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Fanon, and in this video, we are going to talk about Devin Haney and his fight with George Kambosos. The television ratings have come in, and some good news and some bad news with the numbers. The bad news is the numbers took a huge fall from the last time, and the good news, though, is that he is about the number 4 rated guy as far as draw, but close, very knotted up 4 on ESPN's roster. Let's talk about that in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Fanon, and in this video, we are going to be in the 135-pound division. The numbers have come out for Devin Haney and George Kambosos for their viewership. And I think relatively, relative to everything that's going on over there at ESPN, they're not bad numbers, right? With everything, considering everything, not bad numbers, not particularly good numbers in his circumstance. But it does speak volumes about, I think, what is going to be going on in the future. Now, before I get into that, let me welcome you back to the channel. If you are new to the channel, please accept my invitation to hit that subscribe button, hit the bell icon so you can be notified when we release more videos. And if you are if you are a supporter to the channel, thank you so much for your continued support. Really does mean, a lot. I want to say special thank you out. Excuse me. Special thank you to my man Subjugated Truth, who supports in the live streams that we have in the Cash App and in the Super Chat. Really does mean a lot to the channel. All right, so let's get into this, okay? First things first, let's give you the numbers. Devin Haney, according to MMA Payout, had an average viewership for his fight for the fight card with George Kambosos of 923,000 viewers on ESPN last Saturday. Now, obviously, this is a subjective opinion. People can look different ways, but to say whether that is good or bad, let's look at the numbers. I'll tell you what my conclusion is, just looking at the numbers, not personality driven, right? Devin Haney's last bout against George Kambosos for the Undisputed Championship averaged 1.322, 1,320,000. So that is a drop roughly of 40% of the viewers between the first fight and the second fight. Now, also, I think to a certain extent that's to be expected because everybody knew the fight was going to be a blowout. There was no mystery in the fight. Wasn't going to be a lot of, excitement for that fight, right? However, that still keeps him, when you look at where his numbers are relative to the rest of the guys at top rank, right? Now I'm saying looking at, the top lightweights, right? So you got 2 other guys there. You have Shakur Stevenson, and you have Vasily Lomachenko. Now, Shakur Stevenson, his numbers are the following. His last bout against Robson Conceição had an average of 1,090,000, right? So that is about little less than 100,000 more than Devin Haney's average against George Kambosos in their second fight. Now, so that means that Shakur Stevenson had higher ratings than in his last fight than Devin Haney did. Also, go to the fight before that, which is the bout against Oscar Valdez. Now, I also think this is a similar circumstance because with Oscar Valdez, where the average was 1.353, very, very similar to the Kambosos fight, right? there was you had Oscar Valdez, who was also, a good name fighter. It was for a unification fight. However, the drop between the two was about 100,000 less, even though he was fighting Robson Conceição, who was pretty much, nobody really was thinking much about Robson Conceição, right? So I think it's roughly the same situation. So still, Shakur Stevenson's numbers are still continue to be higher than Devin Haney's. Now, compare those also to the last 3 times that Vasily Lomachenko fought on ESPN. Now, he's had a few fights that happened on ESPN Plus and a fight that happened on DAZN, right? But the last 3 times he was on ESPN, this last bout that he had coming back against Richard Comey, it averaged 1.1 million against Richard Comey, right? I think that is very, very similar to a guy that, another situation where nobody really wanted to see the fight. Nobody's really asking for Richard Comey. Richard Comey had already been knocked out by Teofimo Lopez. He had already lost to Robert Easter Jr. down at 100. Well, no, it was at 135 pounds. Had already lost to Robert Easter Jr., right? So not a big name fighter, just kind of a stay busy type of bout for Vasily Lomachenko with no titles on the line whatsoever. And it still did better than both. Still did better than Devin Haney against George KAMBOSOS. And then you go to looking at somebody else like, and the fights before that, were against Teofimo Lopez, which was a big fight, right? A big fight people were interested in. That was 2.7. And then against Jose Pedraza before that, which was a unification fight against Jose Pedraza, the number averaged at 2.1 million, right? So you have Vasily Lomachenko in where he was in fights that the most competitive fight that he had, which I think was kind of like on the real big fight scale, was 2.7 compared to the 1.3 for Shakur and compared to the 1.3 for Devin. And then you have kind of the dead type of bouts, non-title bout for 1.1 versus the 900,000 for Devin and the 1.0 for Shakur. So for me, that puts Vasily Lomachenko, as far as the draws on Top Rank, ahead of both Shakur Stevenson and Devin Haney, right? So kind of puts him around that, the third, that puts Devin Haney a close third, but then you also have Teofimo Lopez. Now, here's the thing with Teofimo Lopez. Teofimo Lopez was coming off a loss in return. Now, this return was at 140, right? However, he did 100. His average was about 890K against Campa, which is a little short of what Devin did and about a little over $1 million short of what Shakur did, right? So but you still have that 2.7 million he did with Lomachenko in the big fight, which who you would credit that to, can't really say. Is probably more Lomachenko than it was Teofimo Lopez. But what you have is pretty much all of those guys lumped together. I would say Shakur Stevenson and Devin Haney's numbers are virtually the same. And right there with Teofimo Lopez, I have to look at what Teofimo Lopez's numbers were for other bouts before the Vasily Lomachenko fight, because I think that's really the outlier. But if you compare that again to like Terrence Crawford, who had the Egis Kalvanakis fight, which was 1.5, and he had a fight on ESPN before that, which was a Julius Ndungo, where you had average 965,000. So really what it says is that you have Devin, Shakur, and Terrence Crawford all kind of right around doing, similar numbers and big bouts over there on ESPN. And the long story short of it is that none of those guys are draws. None of them are big draws, and I don't think any of them are going to be big draws, as long as they are over there with Top Rank. Now, to compare that to to what really I think exceptional numbers are, and you can go look at specifically 2 people, Gervonta Tank Davis and Deontay Wilder. When Deontay Wilder fought Robert. Now this is Deontay Wilder fighting on a subscription network when people were saying he wasn't a draw. He did 1.34 million on Showtime against Bermane Stiverne. He broke over 1 million views on Showtime pretty much every time. Pretty much every time he fought, or close to every time he fought on regular Showtime, not talking about the pay-per-view, he wound up doing around 1 million, over 1 million each time. Gervonta Davis, 594,000 and 604,000 average for his last fight on Showtime, right? Before he went off to pay-per-view. So what does that tell you? It tells you that if you were to take Devin, Shakur, and Lomachenko and put those guys on pay-per-view, they're probably going to fare not quite as well or right around as well as Terrence Crawford did, which is significantly less than Gervonta Davis, significantly less than Errol Spence Jr., significantly less than Deontay Wilder. I mean, leaps and bounds less than guys like Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury, Canelo Alvarez, right? Just not really growing those fighters over there. And if Devin continues to stay there and then he tries to break out to pay-per-view at some point in time, I would just say, man, don't stay there too long. Make sure, get your money on these, or what's going to wind up is you're going to get those big guarantees. But I don't know if they're ever going to give him the big guarantee like they're handing out, like they were handing out to Crawford. So, that's the good portion of it. Devin Haney did, similar to what the top fighters do on ESPN. So he's right there with Shakur. He's right there with Vasily Lomachenko. Right there with what Terrence Crawford was doing. But the bad news on it is that none of those guys really, when you're looking at the grand scheme of boxing, are really considered big draws or people, right? So if you look at these numbers and you compare those and you say, okay, what does that mean for his ticket sales? And the ticket sales and all that stuff kind of come to play in that too. There's all of these guys. Shakur Stevenson is a ballroom fighter. Teofimo Lopez is a ballroom fighter. Vasily Lomachenko is a ballroom fighter. And Terrence Crawford is pretty much a ballroom fighter. Not the type of guy that is going to be filling in stadiums and all of that, which is going to, if you're trying to make matches between those guys, Shakur or Devin and Vasily Lomachenko and Gervonta Davis, it's night and day in the amount of revenue that these guys are bringing in, and it will probably continue to cause difficulty in trying to make those fights. But anyway, that's my take on the matter. You let me know what you think in the comment section. And with that, I'm out. Peace.